As a result of these revisions to the 2019 fiscal framework, the 2019 appropriation of 78,771,833,602.12 cedis that was approved by this August House in November 2018 will not be adequate to cater for the additional program needs, which would increase the total appropriation to 85,142,189,527.4 cedis. Government is therefore requesting honorable members to consider and approve an amount of 6,370,355,925.82 million cedis as supplementary estimates to the original appropriation of 78,771,833,602.12 million to bring the revised total appropriation for the 2019 fiscal year to 85.1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, consistent with Article 179(8) of the Constitution, the request for a supplementary estimate is necessitated by additional precautionary expenditures in response to regional security developments and the amortization of contingent liabilities associated with take-or-pay contracts in the energy sector which have crystallized. You may recall that government in 2017 issued the Energy Sector Levy Act, EXLA bond, which has to date raised almost 6 billion Ghana cedis on the back of EXLA levies to pay for legacy debts from the NDC's doomsday days. The bond produced were used to liquidate approximately 60% of the energy sector legacy debts. Communication service tax. The communication service tax was introduced in 2008 at an ad valorem rate of 6%. The tax is levied on charges payable by consumers for the use of communication services. Government proposes to increase the tax. Government proposes to increase the tax to 9% to develop the foundation for the creation of a viable technology ecosystem in the country from 6%. This will comprise, among others, putting in systems to identify and combat cybercrime, protect users of information technology, and combat money laundering and other financial crimes. The increase will not be earmarked, however. The sharing ratio will be adjusted in such a manner that the National Youth Employment Program continue to receive the same proportion as they are currently receiving.
Bit of drama theatre on the floor of Parliament yesterday when the Finance Minister read the mid-year review. Of course, he presented this and announced that the government has withdrawn the luxury vehicle tax, which was introduced last year. Now, that tax had been targeted at owners of vehicles with engine capacities of 3 litres and more. Suforiata said the government had taken into consideration petitions and sentiments from the general public. He also announced the government has increased communication service tax from 6% to 9%. The CST is levied on charges for the use of communication services that are provided by operators in Ghana. Suforiata also said the energy sector is facing serious challenges which could pose grave financial risk to the entire economy. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're putting it all in perspective today. And this morning, our guest who has arrived already is the Honorable Member of Parliament for Damongo. And he's also a minority spokesperson for energy. It's, of course, Mutawakilu Adam. Daniel Ochema-Boaji will be joining us in a short while. He's the Honorable Member of Parliament for Bantama. He's also government's spokesperson on finance. and he will be joining us pretty soon. But it's very nice to see you, Mr. Adam. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you very much.
Now, this energy matter is probably what we will spend the most time on this morning. But I would love to get your preliminary thoughts on the budget as a whole and any other items in there that caught your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much. First and foremost, I realized that the government promised to move the country from taxation to production.
Yes.
Has failed.
What makes you say that?
They have not been able to achieve it. They made it clear to Ghanaians in the campaign, 2016 campaign, that they want to move from taxation to production, and when production increase, revenue will increase, and therefore they can tax it and make more money to this country. But you have realized over the period, they have left out the production aspect, they have come back to taxation.
But there were some updates yesterday on 1D, 1F and so forth.
No? What happened yesterday was the imposition of more taxes on the ordinary Ghanaian. Ordinary Ghanaian will expect increase in petroleum prices, increase in our communication phones. When we buy our airtime now, it will finish faster than it used to be. And therefore, there's going to be more pressure on the Ghanaians, and this minority will resist it whatever we could. And we expect Ghanaians to join us to resist it. Two, you realize that most of their macro indicators have failed. They have not been able to achieve it over the period as captured in the budget. Their primary balance, they targeted negative 0.1. As of yesterday, it was negative 0.7. That implies totally that they've not been able to achieve. If you look at the fiscal deficit, they had a target of 2.9. They are around 3.3. They haven't achieved it. And they only succeeded in imposing more taxes on Ghanaians. So generally, this budget is not a budget of any good intent, but a budget of only imposing more hardship on Ghanaians.
Right. Well, I mean, numbers don't lie. So what you've said about the macroeconomy, that is subject to verification and, easily settled. But the issue of whether or not they are moving from taxation to production, that is worthy of debate. I'll say that because in the same budget media review statement, we heard progress on 181 projects at various stages of implementation under One District, One Factory, spread over 110 districts across the 16 regions. As at the middle of this year, 57 projects were in operation, providing 10,753 direct jobs and 43,094 indirect jobs. An additional 33 projects financed by local partner financial institutions, so the funding is, well, pretty much guaranteed. They will commence operation by the end of 2019. And then he talked about 8 of them being large-scale processing plants expected to begin operations by December. They've also secured funding to commence construction of 56 small-scale processing factories. So is it really fair to say that we are not moving towards production?
You know the propaganda nature of this government. Most of these factories were already existing factories.
I keep hearing that.
Now,
is
most
there a
of
list
them,
somewhere?
Tamale, they've inaugurated one that has existed long time ago. And they only gave financial support and name it One District, One Factory.
So they gave financial support?
2. Even the One Village, One Dam, their existing dams, they desilted, some of them got worse, and they now name it One Village, One Dam. I don't think that is the nature of governance. This is a propagandist government, and I thought that after 2.5 years, you are still talking of 181 factories ongoing. They should show it to us. What they have captured here and what the Minister of Trade and Industry tell Parliament are completely opposite. And I don't take this one. Parliament is a house of record. Parliament is a house where nobody, when you deceive it, is a contempt. And what the Minister of Trade Honorable Alan Chermente submit to Parliament is totally different from what they put in papers. A special daily guide.
Or perhaps
That is a
progress.
proper. No, just recently he was in Parliament.
Yeah.
And he's not achieved what is being captured in the daily guide.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess what you're saying is they can't both be right.
They can't both be right.
Okay.
And we believe that what is submitted to Parliament is the most authentic.
Right. This is interesting. Okay, so I want the bulk of our conversation to focus on energy.
Yes,
For
that's
me,
okay.
I thought that was the biggest headline.
Yes.
The finance minister literally declared the energy sector an emergency situation.
After 2.5 years.
Well, the sad fact is that this is the second time in, 4 years that the energy sector has been seen as an emergency situation. We'll track through these 2 times and figure out how we got to this point. But first, let's hear the finance minister himself. This is what he had to say about energy.
The Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899, restructured, rationalized, and consolidated all the revenue legislation relating to the energy sector into one law. The object was to dedicate the levies to the energy sector and to promote prudent and efficient utilization of the revenue, as well as facilitate sustainable long-term investments in the energy sector to enhance availability, regularity, and reliability of supply. The dedication of these consolidated levies was to improve the poor balance sheets of the power sector utilities and relieve government of the pressures of the sector in terms of reduced reliance on Ministry of Finance occasional direct funding. The sector, however, continues to be exposed due to the recurring debts and the inherited take-or-pay contracts. At the inception of the Act, it was estimated that approximately 24% of the expand price of fuel will adequately cover the required financing. This percentage has dwindled over the years and is currently about 17% due to inflation and currency depreciation. With this mid-year review, Mr. Speaker, government is proposing an upward adjustment in the road fund levy, the energy debt recovery levy, and the price of realization and recovery levy to bring the ratios close to 21% to help bridge the financing requirements. Our top technical experts, assisted by counterparts from the World Bank, have subjected the energy sector to a thorough analysis and produced the Energy Sector Reform Program, which identifies the key issues in the sector and proposes solutions. According to the ESRP, which has been approved by Cabinet, if we continue with business as usual in the energy sector, the cost to government will increase over time to an accumulated total of over $12.5 billion by 2023. Mr. Speaker, our macroeconomic stability and the hard-earned economic gains we have made are at serious risk of being derailed if we do not immediately take drastic steps to arrest these reprehensible legacy issues in the energy sector. Just to put this in context, the over $1 billion equivalent extraordinary payment that government is having to make in the energy sector this year and on an ongoing basis, if not addressed, is more than 2 times the amount of all government social expenditure on goods and services, which includes free SHS, our school feeding program, our LEAP program. It is no wonder, therefore, that the NDC was convinced that we could not fund President Akufo-Addo's free SHS program, but the Lord has found a way for this nation. Mr. Speaker, in addition, these wasteful expenditures in the energy sector are one of the main causes of increases in end-user electricity tariffs, imposing hardships on Ghanaians. Similarly, these tariffs makes Ghana uncompetitive for manufacturing, thus holding back our industrialization and job creation agenda. What is more, these wasteful payments are putting pressure on our foreign currency reserves and on the exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, In investment banking parlance, the NDC government's parting shot was an energy sector poison pill. But Mr. Speaker, we are determined that the good people of Ghana will not drink this hemlock. Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow this situation to continue. There is no doubt that the situation in the energy sector is shocking the economy and creating a state of emergency. And indeed, as in the case of what we have done in the financial sector, we must respond with the urgency and boldness dictated by the situation. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, government has resolved as follows: to convert all take-or-pay contracts to take-and-pay contracts. Accordingly, starting August 1st, 2019, government is to pay for energy and gas that we actually consume. All take-or-pay contracts will be renegotiated to convert to take-and-pay for both PPAs and gas supply agreements. Government will seek, of course, Mr. Speaker, parliamentary ratification where appropriate. We have resolved, Mr. Speaker, to suspend indefinitely or terminate all PPAs currently under negotiation, to immediately place a complete moratorium on signing new PPAs and put-call option agreements, to subject all future PPAs to competitive and transparent procurement procedures. Government will therefore no longer entertain any unsolicited proposals, to implement the economic merit order dispatch, which means that the most efficient power plants will be dispatched first, to improve the performance of the distribution utility, and we have agreed with the concessionaire a plan to reduce electricity losses and increase collections based on an agreed investment plan, to also significantly shift in the medium term the energy mix to gas and renewables.
Yeah. So that's what Kenneth Weata was talking about yesterday. We're joined now by the government spokesperson on finance, Daniel Ochim Abuaje, Honourable Member of Parliament for Bantamaja, and we bid you a very good morning.
It's been a while. Good morning.
It has, hasn't it? It's nice to see you.
Senior as well.
Now, we're going to spend most of our time on
Sure.
the energy situation, but Mr. Mutawakilu gave us a general idea of his view of the statement. I'll give you 3 minutes to do a response.
Let me say
we'll
good morning to all of you once again, and of course to your viewers, and of course my good people in Bantava, because I'm sure they're watching as well. And to say that quickly in response to what is said about a shift from what production to taxation now, I find it to be quite untruth because of the number of factories that have been done right now. Okay, as we speak right now, we have about 181 of them in various stages of completion, about 57 of them that are in operation right now, and of course, creating about 53,000 jobs, and we're still on the what do you call it?
43,000 jobs.
Now, if you should add the both direct and indirect, you're talking about almost 53,000 jobs.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So if you look at what we did when we started, we abolished some 17 nuisance taxes. Right. That is a record that everybody knows. It's a fact. It was there in Parliament what we did. Even the luxury tax that we think that is not producing the effect, the fiscal impact is not what we are getting. We're listening. So let's just put it off, because now it's no longer producing what it's supposed to produce. So if you say we are not doing production, I think maybe you have to look at this verse properly. I don't think there's no way that the minister is going to come before Parliament and produce numbers that are not true.
But these numbers contradict what the trade minister.
But this is the information. This is the information that we have right now. This is what it is. In fact, it's just that what is the trade minister saying that is different, actually? It's just a matter of probably the way he's interpreting it. But there's one thing that he said that I need to correct him, that some of the companies are existing already. And without due respect to him, what sense will it make to reinvent the wheel when it's a company that exists already?
So what's the situation with that Tamale company that Mr. Mutawakilu
I'm not
mentions?
very particular about that one he's referring to in Tamale, because I'm not very familiar with it. But the issue is that if you are doing one district, one factory, and we come into a district, and it's an existing company that can be reinvented, what is the point in going to start a new one all over? And that is just one of the problems they used to have with the free senior high school and building new schools. We'll go to a school like Prempeh College or Yasantua or St. Louis in Kumasi and say, okay, these are great schools, or even CAS, Anglican Secondary School. They have campuses, they have a lot of land. Instead of building new schools, let's try to add some more campuses or more buildings. So it is just a matter of style. Let's leverage what exists already. And that is not wrong. So don't say just because we said one district, one factory, it means every company is going to be new. Come on, it won't make any sense.
So help us understand that.
Sure.
What you're saying is that in some cases, the factories are existing.
In some cases, if they do exist in the district and they are having problems, what do? The best, if you think you find them to be feasible and they are willing, they are interested, what sense will it make to go and start one anew, something different, instead of leveraging what exists already? So
the factory already exists.
Okay.
It's already functioning, just that it has some problems. And then
you want to establish another one?
No, what I'm saying is, and then you go and solve their problem for them and say, I've provided a factory in the district. But the factory already existed.
But the ultimate goal of creating one district, one factory is also to try to help create jobs.
Yeah, so if they're already operating and you go and just solve their financial problems.
No. If they are already existing and they are feasible, if they are already existing and they are interested, if they are already existing and creating another one will create duplication, which will even limit the type of market they have in the area. Business-wise, it wouldn't make sense to start a new one when you can actually fix or make sure that you can handle the one that exists already.
So why not call that a separate project, maybe factory rejuvenation program? No. And let's focus on creating one district, one factory, like you promised to do in your manifesto.
Have you really read our manifesto? The one district, one factory does not mean every district is going to have a new factory.
Yeah, we're talking about this the rejuvenation.
But it's not a problem. The point I'm making is that it's not a problem. If you have to set up a factory in one district, a new district, and there's one that exists already producing or using the same raw material in the area, it will even be disadvantageous for you to create another one that is going to probably compete with it because maybe the market will be even limited for them. So read our manifesto and incorporate what we have done. So leveraging what exists already is not an abomination in this case.
All right. We don't want to spend too much time on this.
You see, every factory or company at any point in time will have some challenges. That one you can't do away with.
It's not true.
Not every factory will have challenges. There's no factory that you will go and ask the manager, do you have challenges? And the manager will tell you, no. Every factory is like a human being. Every day things come up and you have challenges. So if already there was an existing factory under a certain regime, say NDC, you've come and said, okay, I'm giving you some liquidity support, then you take one factory for this thing. Now let me also tell you, when you came up with the one district, one factory, we said, for example, Bupe, we have the share nut factory.
But what is wrong with that?
Which is huge and covers most of the northern sector with buying of share nut. You indicated that, yes, you go to still have a factory A, B, C, D. Now you are telling me that if there is a factory here that is serving an area, you don't need to duplicate. But we wait for you.
Mr. Mutawakilu, let's not forget that what you accused them of was moving from production to taxation.
Now, I'm now going to the taxation. The purpose of moving from taxation to production, why they indicated was that when you leave tax, you don't tax the people, and they increase production, they will make profit, huge profit. Right. Then there's a corporate tax on the profit. They will pay as you earn. That is income tax. And that one alone should be able to support the budget. That is the basis of moving from taxation to production. It's an alternative way of making revenue. Or making revenue without taxing the people.
Exactly.
Now,
if they allow that factory to collapse without supporting it, that's a loss of taxation.
It's not collapsing. So why I'm saying that is that now you are moving back. You are moving back to the taxation. We expected that going forward, more taxes will be withdrawn. not imposition of more taxes. Are you getting my point?
Right.
That implies that policy of moving from taxation to production has failed. That is why you are back to taxation and you are bringing more taxes.
But is it fair to conclude it's failed when they are actually investing in production? Even this example you dispute.
Let's look at the production
even this
level.
example you dispute of this tamale factory that my producers are trying to identify, which you are saying instead of them creating a factory, they simply
going as the owners.
That is what I'm saying.
Even that, is that not a move towards production?
Let me ask you. The move towards production is to ensure that we don't impose more taxes. The basis of production is to limit imposition of taxes. And that is your mantra.
And they haven't done that?
Look at the budget.
Okay, but
more tax talks.
Let me help
Top
you.
taxes coming back. More imposition of ESLA, which because we'll be coming to energy, which they kicked against when they were in opposition and promised to scrap it, came back and embraced it, and now increasing it. We'll also look details into the justification. When a government in opposition promises that we move from taxation to production, then when they get the mandate, they now move from they say production back to taxation.
All right.
We have
to move on. 30 seconds, and then I'll have to cut in. I'm sorry.
Let's get this right. What are we trying to resolve here? We have a problem created by NDC, energy crisis, which are going to go into that. If you don't have energy, how do these companies that we are creating even survive? All right? So the point is, if we say, let's try to deal with this emergency that has been outlined, the issues, one of your legacies that is killing Ghana and choking Ghana in terms of how we manage our finances, to ensure that these factories that we are creating, the factories that do exist already, can have power to produce. You call it going back to taxation. We are dealing with the legacy debt that you created.
Legacy debt. Understand the meaning of legacy debt.
No.
Understand the definition and look at the ESLA, how they define legacy debt. It's very important.
That's all right.
The ESLA Act.
Something, a debt that we inherited from you with respect to energy.
1992 to 2015.
But then, a lot of them were.
Go to the
a lot
ESLA
of them
Act
came from. Honorable, you know that. A lot of them came from the arrangements you made by pay or take.
We'll look at it.
Pay or take arrangements. That is costing us
you understand
about
that you people are not
$500
serious.
and $600 million. And that's what we are trying to fix. Factories will need this to be able to operate.
All right. So that's a beautiful segue into the energy conversation. And I want to start with you, Mr. Mutawakilu, because the finance minister minced no words in placing the blame firmly at the doorstep of the previous administration. And he made it quite simple in his description of the situation. We had an emergency power situation. So the previous government signed emergency power deals that commit us to some punitive conditions. For example, whether or not we use the power that is produced, we must pay for it. If we try to come out of these deals, some of them have some clauses that require that if you cancel the deal, you continue to pay them for decades. So we find ourselves in a situation where, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And this happened simply because the previous administration allowed us to fall into a state of emergency where you are, you cannot be the stronger negotiating party. And so here we are now with these really shocking conditions.
Let's look at the energy sector from the 60s up to the 90s, the 2000s. It is normal that in any power sector, take or pay is not something you should see as extreme. And I'll advise the MPP to name any plant or any agreement they signed under J.A. Kufuor that was not take or pay. We damp is take or pay.
There's no excess capacity.
No, you wait. I'm coming to the excess capacity. We damp is take or pay. The Asogle phase 1 that was signed under J.A. Kufuor is take or pay.
So are you saying these are good deals?
Yes. Now, in 2015, we had power shortage, where generation fell short of the demand.
This was a problem that has grown over years.
And as a result, there was the need to bring in emergency power plants. And when you bring emergency power plants, you look at the focus of demand, annual demand, which was between 10 and 15%. The program of activities that government wants to undertake. So in bringing the power plants, you must have a plan towards the future. You realize that a power plant cannot be established within 3 months or 1 year. It's between 3 years and 5 years. So in doing that, you project to the future. And that was what President Mahama did. There was a projection with the incoming of these power plants. And one of the key policy of President Mahama was that by 2020, we should have universal access to electricity. And that means that the whole of Ghana, we should have electricity. The more you expand electrification, the more you increase the consumption. That will take into consideration the future generation demand, installed capacity that will be added.
You're saying this was the thinking of President Mahama
No,
in
he has made it
2015.
clear that by 2020, we want to have universal access to electricity.
Right.
And as a result, in 2014, universal access to electricity was 75%. 2015, it rose to 80.5%. That is 5.5% jump. In 2016, it came to 83.24%. Now, this is a trajectory that the government was pursuing. A new government comes in and says, universal access is not a priority to us. Meanwhile, the investment to generate the power had already gone in. It says, okay, universal access in 2030, 10 years more. And as a result, they've not been able to undertake aggressive access to electricity. In 2017, the government in the budget promised that they will connect 2,185 communities to the national grid. By the end of 2017, they connected only 447. In 2018, the same government projected to connect 1,796 communities. And as I said, September 2018, they connected only 122. The government is lazy to undertake the project that is required to consume the excess capacity. And once they consume the excess capacity, there's nothing like take or pay, because you utilize the plants. Now, let it be very clear that President Mahama had undertaken several steps with the setting up of factories, like the sugar factory, huge, to consume the power. If this government was implementing the one district, one factory, and had actually done what is required, much of this excess capacity would have been consumed. But also let me make it clear, excess capacity is always required in the power sector. That is why we say...
How much? And how much can we afford to pay for?
That is what we say reserve margin. The reserve margin is 20% of the peak demand. So if the peak demand is 2,700, you calculate 20% of that. That will be 540 megawatts. You must keep it as the demand increases. You realize that the 20%, the figure will increase. You must leave it and pay for it whether you use it or not, because of in case of emergencies.
Are you saying that is what they are complaining about, the 20%?
You see, they indicated 2,300, and they used the figure of the load peak demand, where it is 4,500 megawatts, and that the consumption is 2,200 megawatts. You don't calculate it using the low peak demand. Use the high peak demand. That is 2,700. If you take the 540 megawatts, which is the reserve margin, you'll have about 1,300 megawatts. If you pursue the rural electrification as required, you will consume much of it. If you pursue the one district, one factory, you will consume much of it. Two, we have Valco sitting with several port lines. It is better to activate the port lines. Each of the port lines takes 75 megawatts. And we still have about 4 port lines lying down. So that is about 300 megawatts. It is better to activate the port lines and make good use of the power and get some revenue in return than to sit down and cry foul when we have assets that could use the the power. We have rural electrification that we could undertake to use the power.
Mr.
And you come and complain to us. That is a lazy approach.
I mean, it's all well and good to advise them on how to increase, consumption and usage. But if in 2015 there had not been an emergency situation, would you have still signed take or pay agreements?
Let me tell you, in 2016, early power came. It's not take or pay. Early power.
But you signed take or pay agreement.
Let me come. Let me take you. You just said the emergency situation. I'm now addressing it.
Right.
In 2016, early power PPA came. It's not take or pay. Because by then we've gotten the power that we require. In that case, you don't do take or pay. Two, in 2016, when we realized that there was emerging issue of take or pay, the government under the finance minister Setepe brought in what we call put call option agreement. And car power agreement, which was take or pay, was brought to us to review and make it what? Put call option agreement. So there was no steps were taken.
That didn't happen.
It happened.
The review happened.
We pass it.
So car power is now not a take or pay agreement.
It's under PCOPA. Put call option agreement.
Allow me to just very quickly, just before you continue, if you don't mind, let me just quickly say that on the phone is the Executive Director of the Institute of Energy Security, Pakwesiana Mwasichi. Hello and good morning. We're going to hear your perspective on this in just a moment as soon as the panelists wrap up. But good morning. Thank you for making the time. Please stay with us and let's just hear what our panelists have to say.
So the fourth one I want to put in. If a government wants to make Ghana an energy hub, they must foresee exporting power. And that was what President Mama pursued. Exporting power from Ghana to Burkina Faso.
These informed his decisions during the emergency situation. He was thinking of exporting.
Which emergency situation?
The one that the
you
NDC government
announced
and said for that reason they had to go for deals like car power, like Ameri, because we have an emergency situation.
And we were all in emergency situation.
That's what
you realize it.
Yes.
But every government.
So at that time you were thinking of exporting.
Yes. The president went to Bolga or Paga and cut this off for export of power. It didn't start in 2017. It started under President Mama, where we want to spread to the neighboring countries. And two, even the transmission lines was 161 kV. Under President Mama, we decided to upgrade it to 330 kV. It was this government that came, and because of the poor performance of GRICO as a result of their mismanagement of the energy sector, that transmission line delayed. I heard it has now been it has started all over again to transmit. So there were massive plans to ensure that excess capacity did not.
So to clarify, you went for these take or pay agreements deliberately. Not that you were in an emergency and those were the best ones you could get.
Please, that is why I said that
you were intentional in signing them.
In every power agreement, take or pay is not an exceptional.
So you
that is why
you did it deliberately.
They should tell us which power plant under J.A. Kufuor they signed that was not take or pay. We power is take or pay.
All right.
No, Asogli phase 1 was signed, but executed by us, and it was take or pay.
Okay. We're going to hear from you really quickly before we take Mr. Anamwasichi's views.
But Kojo, I think what we need to, what we are confronted with is the fact that Ghana is paying 2.5 billion of excess capacity we do not need. For excess capacity we do not need. And that is the bone of contention. In terms of the strategy or what kind of scheme they use, pick or take. Take. If you do not have excess capacity, I think that's no problem. I need about 2,700. If you add the excess capacity, the backup, he's talking about the reserves. of 540. That should give you somewhere around 3,240 megawatts of power. If that is all we're paying for, then that wouldn't have been a problem, even if it is take or pay. But not when you give us more than 50% of what we need. And you come and tell us and say that we are not connecting to the community. Yes, I'm glad that at least you mentioned that we are making some moves and we are connecting some.
But you are falling short of your target.
You're falling short.
But the question is because of the crisis they put us in, which if you read the budget statement properly, the minister is saying that this is even affecting allocation of resources to even some of the district assemblies. Because we have to manage this situation. Budget funds that we need to use for managing our finances as a country are suffering because of these evil arrangements. But could you listen to this carefully? You talk about what? Sugar factory in Komenda to use part of the power. No problem. And I don't want to make it too political. The reason is that you build this factory even without thinking about the source of raw material. So when were you going to actually start that factory to use the power you're talking about? So this is what we are confronted with. Ghana needs 2,700 megawatts of capacity at the peak.
That includes excess or?
Let's give him benefit of that because of his background, that we need about 540 more. That should only just give us 3,240. Why 5,083? Why?
Okay.
To the extent that you and I are paying about $600 million a year just on energy. For what reason?
Okay, let's hear Pakwesi Anamwa Sechi. Mr. Anamwa Sechi, please help us out, okay? There's a lot of politics flying around, but facts are facts and reality is reality. Tell me what your analysis is of what the finance minister is saying, that in essence, we are being crippled by an emergency situation with an overload of take-or-pay deals, which is making it impossible for us to afford power. Talk to us about which part of this is reality, which part of it is propaganda.
Thank you very much, Kojo. Good morning to you and to your viewers as well. Yesterday, the finance minister indicated that we have installed capacity of 5,000 megawatts. That is correct. It's 5,083 megawatts. And the peak demand is 2,700. And so literally, we have about 2,300 of excess capacity. Kojo, that's quite simplistic. That's not how it works. No machine or engineering system is 100% efficient. You have to look at what you can depend on, though you have installed. How much dependable capacity do we have? And that is 4,600. That's where we should start from. Then 2,700 of peak demand. It's not like every day will require 2,700, but that's the highest demand we've ever recorded. And this can change tomorrow. It can go up. And that's why we have reserve margin. There could be shock in the system where some system or parts plants can go down, and so we should have some reserve. 10% of the 2,700 will give us 400 or about. And so we are looking about 3,300 of demand when you are putting the absorption and the cushioning. And so literally, the excess capacity we have is about 1,300 and not 2,300.
Exactly.
That should be corrected.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Moving away from there, we are looking at the take and pay, or pay, take or pay. Because every investor will want to be assured of utilization of this installation and payment as well. Assuming that you brought the power plant, where most of them will be transferred to government after some years. If I put down the plant without utilization by government, or it's not dispatched, what happens is that I don't get money because it's not used. How do I go and pay my creditors? And so take or pay is not anew in the power system. It does exist. The only thing I think we did wrong was that because of lack of planning, we went shopping at the wrong time. And so we bought this plant at quite uncompetitive prices. I think government should rather sit down with the power producers and review prices. It's quite important. If we have excess capacity of 1,300, this can fizzle out in the next 2 years, I tell you. And Kojo, you know we have suppressed demand.
Yeah.
Most radio stations, TV stations, hotels, and other entities, they use generators.
Yeah.
If they should come back online for any other reason, I tell you, 1,300 parts is gone. If we pursue our industrialization drive, section will go away. If VACO should come on stream, parts will go away. If we pursue our access to power, of which was 5% per annum, and good news is that we are the second highest country. We are the second country in sub-Saharan Africa that we have very high access to power. If we should deepen it on an annual basis, parts will go away. Right. And so if we play with, let's shut down or let's cancel some PPAs and let's abrogate them, and we are not careful, within the next 3 or 4 years, we'll have less installed capacity and dependable capacity. We should rather focus on how we can reduce the prices and make them competitive, even for our neighbors, because they find our price quite, it's not competitive for them. If we can manage the price for them, Togo, Burkina Faso, and the rest, they'll be taking power. And this 1,300 will fizzle out. We should look at the pricing.
Right. Mr. Anamwasechi, you suggest what the finance minister himself says he wants to do, which is to renegotiate these deals. But how easy is that? You have already stated that these are investors. They have brought their money into this business of producing power for the government of Ghana. And it is far more viable for them to be on a take or pay. What leverage do we have as a country to coerce them into changing it to a take and pay system, as the finance minister described it?
Kojo, even the take and pay, I am sure that, and very certain, that no power producer will say, I will leave my plants there. When you come and take, then you pay. When I know very well that some of these plants or my plants will be given to government after 15 years, they will seek for a guarantee.
Right.
They will ask government, what level of utilization rate, if you take it on a monthly basis, how much will you dispatch? And government will agree to a quantity. And if they agree, that becomes a take and pay. If government is not able to use that, then of course, a clause is there for them to pay as well. It just appears just like take or pay. And so they will require some form of guarantee to agree on the take and pay. That is one. And I'm sure they say they've done it with Senate. I don't know how they did it. And sadly, they have some lessons learned along the way. Maybe they can depend on that to move it forward. However, the best way is to negotiate with them on the price. It's important. So that they can be in business for government to also be in business, because we are losing out here.
Yeah. Now, negotiating on the prices, dealing with one side of the business, if you will. There's also the wastage that comes out on the other side from the distribution point, where we have people tapping into power illegally, not paying their bills, and all kinds of wastage, which is also driving up the price of power. Let me ask you this: these concessionaires, this concessionaire arrangement that the government, has put in place, has it in any way improved the customer experience when it comes to power?
Well, I'm sure the records and the evidence is there for you to say that we are not out of the woods. We still have been so. We still have losses in our system, both technical and commercial. They are not able to collect all the money, even those that are well subscribed to the system. Apart from those who tap in illegally, they are not able to detect. Even for the lights we use on the streets, we are able to measure the quantity of power that is used for lights and all that. I'm sure these are some of the reasons for which the concessionaire arrangement was brought to the fore. And I'm not sure we have seen any changes there. So I've not seen any effect. Maybe it's early days yet, but you know that, for example, there were some conditions precedent before the takeover, and one was to put forward some letter of credit or bank guarantee to ensure and assure us that they'll be able to undertake their obligation when it falls due. I am unsure if they've been able to do that. And that should have come from an AA plus financial institution.
And this was a condition precedent,
company.
right?
Yes,
this was a condition precedent.
But they made them condition subsequent.
That is where the problem is.
Wow.
They made them condition subsequent. They didn't meet it. And so, as we speak, I don't know whether they've been able to meet it. And if you don't have those guarantees, it means that you're unable to do what you say you will do. Because that is where we stand.
I see.
I'm sure all of us should interrogate and find out whether they've been able to meet it.
Very quickly, before we take leave of you, how much confidence do you have in this government's ability to successfully renegotiate these deals? We saw when they promised to renegotiate Ameri, what a fiasco that became. They ended up sacking a minister over it, you know, and we were told that the president was misinformed. How much faith do you have in this government's ability to successfully renegotiate these deals?
So if you don't get economics right, you'll get it wrong. And I'm sure they got economics wrong during that Mary. And so it has to be renegotiated twice and for us to move forward. If you find a senior minister who comes and says that we have excess capacity of 2,300, when we know that you cannot deploy all that you have installed for the reason of efficiency or inefficiency within every power system or engineering system, it tells you that they will get the economics wrong again. And I can only say that they will succeed if they get the economics right. And so they should sit up and make sure that when they are doing the computation, they do it on a sound footing. For example, let me give you a quick example. You can say somewhere refinery have recorded again a gross profit of more than 9 million, whatever. We don't use gross profit in determining the profitability of a refinery.
Right.
And so let's get the economics right. Let's get the basics right. And I'm sure every other thing will fall in place, right?
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pakwesi Anamwa Sechi. He's the Executive Director of the IES, the Institute of Energy Security.
I think he's analyzed what.
If you don't mind, Mr. Mutawakilu, I would like to hold your thoughts till last, because we really need to hear government responding to this. Well, this is an analyst. That's his business. But he says, first of all, you misinformed us. Finance Minister misinformed us. The figures are wrong. It's not over 2,000 excess. It's 1,000. 1,200.
About
1,200.
Kojo, I disagree with you on that one. Yeah, I'm sure
it's not me. I didn't say it.
I disagree with him.
Okay.
I'm sure you have this slide.
Oh, that is
No. This is part of the presentation that was given to us. And on this slide, you see that we have clearly.
Yeah, we have it on the screen.
It indicated what we call dependable capacity. So just because he came here and told us that it is 1,003, which of course we know does not mean you've got it wrong. We know what the numbers are.
But you understand how he came to the 1,003,
No,
right?
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. And it's not like we are doing this out of vacuum. The numbers are known. The economics are known. And he's talking about if you get economics wrong. I was part of a group that had a meeting with the World Bank in Washington, D.C. And this issue of excess capacity came up. How do we resolve it? He was talking about giving the investors some guarantees. And the World Bank is even trying to support Ghana to be able to go and renegotiate this properly. The reason why this has become an issue right now is the fact that you couldn't just have come to power and say, I'm going to just scrap everything off. You go back to do so. So you have to make sure you begin to initiate a process that will give you the opportunity to negotiate properly. And that is what we have done. So we are not going to get economics wrong. Now, the minister said, if you heard me right yesterday, that doom so is a thing of the past. It's history now. What it means is that whatever we need to do to ensure that we as a country do not go back to the old days, what doom so we will do. So there's no way we are going to get the economics wrong to assume that our decisions are going to be wrong. And exactly what he suggested. Negotiate, renegotiate. It is going to happen.
Mr. Chemabwaje, allow me to point this out
Sure.
because
It's all right.
Go ahead. It's your job to make it seem that government knows what they're doing.
Of course.
But we are almost 3 years into your administration,
Sure.
and we are spending 2.5 billion on capacity charges that you say we shouldn't be spending because we don't need it. It's been 3 years. Okay, are you now realizing this? Are you now waking up to this reality, or did it creep up on you? Did nobody have a calculator during the transition period to have figured out that we'll be spending this much on capacity charges by now, so that you would have started fixing the problem from day one? Why are we hearing today that we are in an emergency situation? Are you not doing exactly what your predecessors did and allowing the problem to fester to the point where it's an emergency? And then you come and announce to us that you want to spend 5 billion out of the 6.3 billion that you are asking for on energy.
No, we are not. We are not doing the same thing.
But you did.
No.
Been
If
here
you heard
almost 3 years.
what your guest was on the phone said, is it what do you call it, the CEO of ASEP, right?
No, not ASEP.
IES said it is as a result of poor planning.
On whose part? It's been your job to plan for the past 2.5 years.
I'm coming. Poor planning that our friends in NDC, that's what he said, got us into this mess. On our part.
We'll be dealing with that.
I'm just
but
giving
at the
you.
moment, let's talk about your time in
moving
government.
forward with that.
Okay.
You cannot just come to power, Kojo, and just say that pay and take. You're going to actually put this country in a situation where we're going to look bad in the eyes of the whole world.
So you did nothing for 2.5 years to look good in the eyes of the world?
I just gave you what we did. That a couple of months ago, we were in Washington, D.C. to meet with the World Bank Group, right? When we went there, that's not the first time we were going there, because even before we got there, they had some people to come and see how they can help us to resolve this issue. We had already highlighted the issue. But you could not...
But done nothing about it. I mean, why didn't you have this meeting in Washington in 2017?
Do you think...
To save us 2.5 billion a year.
Do you think what we are hearing today is just something that just came up?
Well, that's how you make it sound.
No, it's not an event. It's work in progress. We've gotten to a point where this issue that we have to renegotiate, we've gotten to a point where we are beginning to get some vibes that means that we will succeed in renegotiating these deals. Otherwise, the minister will not just come out and say that. Because if you do that, you can incur even judgment debts.
So you knew about this problem.
So we have known about the problem.
But you've done nothing because if you did, it would cost you.
If we've done nothing, we will not be talking about this. We know what the problem is. We have been trying to negotiate to get it to a point where there will be understanding and will not go back. Don't forget.
But you couldn't have saved us this 2.5 billion a year.
That is what we are working on right now.
But we've been paying it for 2.5 years now.
What do you have to do? Because you inherited this from a previous government, which made it so tight for you to negotiate, and any attempt to show that you are too tough and that you're the government, you have the sovereign power and all those things, you end up basically, people are going to just say, you know what, if they won't pay,
so what you're saying is that in 2017 you knew that in 2019 we will be in an emergency situation.
No, we knew that we have to take measures to begin to renegotiate, to see what the problem is, begin to renegotiate and save Ghana money.
But you didn't know we would be in an emergency situation.
Oh, of course. It's because we've been managing, we have been managing this situation by paying down the debt that we inherited.
All right.
So it's not like we have done nothing. No. Okay. It's not an event. It's not something that just
all right. Mr. Mutawakilu, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to allow you to escape blame here. I mean, not you. No. I mean, your government to escape blame here, because you heard Mr. Pakwesi Anamwasichi re-echoing what I asked you earlier. You negotiated at the worst possible time. So you ended up with the worst possible deals. Your government had been in office since 2009. In 2015, we were in an emergency situation. You had to get the deals that you can get to keep the lights on. So here we are, because these deals are really restrictive and punitive. Take or pay is not a strange thing, but we are paying a lot. We are paying a lot.
I want to, yes, you're right. First of all, let me come to the excess capacity they quoted. You know, I made that statement that the dependable capacity of 4,500, the minister used the low demand, peak demand. The low demand, that is 2,200, and just had 2,000. And I said that is not the right thing.
Right.
You use 2,700,
But that's
then
still
you
good.
calculate the reserve margin on it, you will get about 1,300 megawatt
This
excess
is all.
capacity.
This is all.
So that is wrong.
That is all wrong.
Renegotiation. We are waiting for the minister to bring that, and we'll see whether the take and pay is the one that is working or is still take or pay.
You are saying the effect will be the same.
At the end of the day, he should bring the renegotiator. But we have been in this situation before, where a minister held a press conference and said that they have cancelled 11 PPAs and deferred 8 PPAs and saved $7 billion. We're in this country. The budget captured that only 2 PPAs have been cancelled. And I believe the presentation given by Electricity Company of Ghana, that said that those 2 PPAs are even solar PPAs, solar energy, not thermal. So this government has never been consistent and has never told us the truth. In 2018, late 17 and 2018, you told us that 11 PPAs have been cancelled. In 2019 media budget, you are telling us 2. So there's a lot of inconsistencies going on. So their renegotiation, we wait for them to bring it and we'll look at it. Now let's go forward. The 2,000, this excess capacity, it's not like end of 2016, we have excess capacity of this. Some of the plans came on board in the course of the following years. Some in 2017, some came on board in 2018.
But all from
that
deals that were
is why I said
signed by
projections.
your government.
Projections. That is why I said if they had pursued the rural electrification as needed, would have consumed much of this excess. And he made mention of no money. 2 of the projects that was to cover over 1,000 communities was not government of Ghana funds. It was signed in 2016 and with the China Development Bank, about $200 million. And there were 2 contractors, Hunan Construction and China Water and Electrical Corporation. This government came, since Nana Akufo-Addo came to power, they have frustrated the implementation of this project. And that is why we've not been able. So it's intentional by this government to ensure that they suppress demand that is available, what you could do to consume is suppressed, but you are not using it. What had been suppressed by this government, if they had taken those projects on, I believe that this excess capacity would have been a thing of the past.
Mr. Mutawakilu, this is a point
Now-
you have already made.
now
and
let's
I've
go
said
forward.
that it's easy enough to advise them on how to fix the problem, but is it not you that caused it? That's what I haven't heard you admit yet.
No,
That, look,
I
you
made
neg-
mention that in the emergency situation, we signed power purchasing agreement.
Yes,
Take or pay, which is not exceptional.
yes. But
We
you
made it.
signed very exorbitant, expensive, punitive,
Over and over
restrictive,
again.
Excuse
As you
me.
said.
restrictive.
In a situation where you are in crisis,
You
where
don't think?
you are in
Why
serious
were
trouble,
we in
think?
crisis after you've been in office for 6 years?
Please, previous government did not invest as expected when they were in government.
But you had been there for 6 years by the time the emergency came along.
No, it started in 2012.
I'm talking about the time you made the
No,
purchases
no,
in 2015.
no.
12. That was even
No.
4 years, Kojo.
No.
Yeah, I'm not even going
No,
to. I'm
let
talking
me
about
tell you.
when you made these
Excuse
purchase
me.
agreements.
No.
Most of these purchase
It
agreements.
didn't come to no. Some came.
Even
in
you said
2013.
that today.
No, I said as at the time, signing a PPA is different from when the plant is ready to produce.
Fair enough. But
So
it
if
is
the
the
plant-
signing that
excuse
causes
me,
the problem.
If the plant start producing in 2016, calculate 3 years back.
Okay.
So you cannot relate this to 2015.
All right. So you actually signed them when there was no emergency.
There
That's
was
what you're saying.
emergency
2012.
started, excuse me. We had emergency situation in 2012.
Okay. Okay.
In 2012, where we Akosobo Dam, 2012, 2013, 2014, and by 2015 it has
The
been
levels
resolved.
were okay.
These were the critical period.
Yeah.
And therefore, in such situation, you might have the lender taking advantage because the Ghanaians needed the power. And when
So
you are
were
looking,
taken advantage of.
when you are looking at it, look at vis-a-vis the economic loss as a result of the power crisis.
That's what makes it an emergency.
Then,
right?
in those days, for every month, we're losing $150 million economic loss.
Right.
Every month. So in doing that, at that critical situation, you look at the economic loss vis-a-vis the lender. So if I decide that in 2013, I will not sign any PPA, and then we have series of economic losses of about $150 million every month for 1 year, or even for 6 months, that's $900 million economic loss.
So
and
basically, it was an emergency.
It was an emergency.
I get this.
We agree.
But what I'm saying is that, again, because of lack of planning and foresight, we found ourselves in an emergency.
No, that is why I said it is as a result of previous regimes.
Oh goodness!
Let me tell you.
All right.
Let me tell you. Tell me.
We are going to come back. We're going to come back to this.
Between 2000,
we will hear
and
you out.
2008.
But right now, let's come to me for a moment. Yes, we'll hear more from our panelists. But right now, something else that was announced in the budget was the scrapping of the luxury vehicle tax. Roland is currently at the DVLA to see how motorists are responding to that announcement. Roland, if you can hear us, take us through what you've learned so far.
Well, so far at the registration center of the Vehicle and Licensing Authority are here at 37 because they don't have their head office here. You can find that many people are trooping in, and I've seen just a couple of these cars who have made entry onto the compound or the DVLA. Their working hours, of course, Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. 3 p.m. But we're here purposefully to make sure that we seek the right answers, get the right responses from around the DVLA, and also work with other vehicle owners who want to register their new cars, especially those that fall in that category. And I would want to ask a couple of questions first. And it looks like this has been greeted with some excitement, the removal of the vehicle luxury levy or tax. And for many people, that would be a good thing. Let me speak to this lady. Good morning to you. What's your name?
Good morning. I'm Alice.
Alice. And now we have at least those normal cars, even though we tend to see them by the type, four-wheel drives, etc. Even though what the levy or the act really says is that when the engine is from 3cc as a capacity, then it would attract that. It's been removed. That should be good news for people who want to register vehicles of such nature, won't you say?
Oh yeah, it's a very good news. And then it's not from 3cc, it's from 2.9.
2.9.
So whether,
you're correcting me.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
And then whether it's an old car that you want to renew your roadworthy or it's a new registration, you have to pay.
Well, good one. Now, Alice, tell me, what was the experience? How frustrated were people who wanted to come and register their vehicles here, as you were witnessing at the licensing office here?
No, it was very, very, very bad. People were complaining. Imagine you have an old car, a Kokompe car, and then the car is 3.
Oh, that was so interesting, and unfortunately we lost the audio there. We'll seek to reconnect, and no matter what, we'll bring you that conversation in its entirety. Fascinating, Kukumpika. But I think that's a good point on which we can talk about a few of the other things in the budget.
Yes.
And this This is one that I really want us to focus on. I mean, this energy thing will never go away.
Just before we go there, my honorable senior colleague is saying that the government was untruthful. I think that is not true. The reason, what is the point in lying about problems that you have to deal with?
You could have made a mistake.
I can show you when the minister held the press
and then,
conference.
in terms of saying that we've not connected our communities, it's work in progress. I mean, this country was left. Hold on, this country was left in a lot of mess. And we have to pick and choose given our limited resources.
So then perhaps you shouldn't have set those targets that you set.
You have priorities, right? Priorities as to what we have to do. And everybody is going to be everybody is going to be taken care of.
In the budget.
Now, if you have to deal with a bad situation in an emergency way, of course, you probably will take certain measures that probably will not give you all the benefits you need, but not just to go and make an arrangement where we have to end up for many, many years, paying 2.5 billion Ghana cedis a year. And then you come and tell us, let's wait and see what they can bring.
Okay.
So the agreement was so worse to the point that you are telling us Ghanaians that there's no way we are going to be able to bring anything home.
You said you negotiate
Let's see.
down.
Let's see.
What happened.
Let's see.
So that's why
hold on.
we
Honorable,
wait.
let's see. I think it is better that you offer some alternatives that will help, other than to say that let's wait and see because of what you know you've done.
The alternative
Either
is
you set this up
finish the
incompetently.
electrification.
No. The alternative is that of course, we want to use it. The capacity that we have, we want to use it. We want to make sure if you can export, we export, right? So it's not a problem. What we need to do is to renegotiate.
All right. I had hoped that we could touch on the luxury tax, but I'm told we've run out of time.
We told you so.
So you didn't tell us. We didn't together.
Even a tipper track.
This is a listening government. This is not.
Then you impose hardship on the people.
No. This is a listening government, but you are part of it.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm told that we have 2 minutes to touch on the luxury tax. So I'll start with you, Mr. Mutawakilu.
Now, when the luxury tax was imposed, we said it is non-discriminatory. Vehicles that are not of luxury, once your engine capacity is 2.9 cc, you will pay. And we know most of these tipper trucks, pickups, ordinary pickup, people use for even construction, will pay. And some of the luxurious pickups, their engine capacity is not up to that. And they are of luxury, they won't pay. And we said that is non-discriminatory and it is not good. It will affect a lot of people. And as a result, we didn't need this luxury tax. They argue on the floor of Parliament and made it clear that that is what will bring. And that is why I said from production to taxation. After 10 months, the truth has shown its ugly head, and then you withdraw it. What I have to tell them that we told you so. We, the minority, told you so.
But isn't that a feather in their cap? That they've realized something doesn't work and they've removed it.
It is
even though they know that you gloat.
No, the first is that when we criticize it, did they sit back and analyze it and look at the minority position then?
They said what you are saying now. They said, let's wait and see.
They took us for granted.
Let's wait and see.
They took us for granted.
Real quick.
The good thing is that the idea of that luxury tax was to try to raise money from rich people who are assumed to have bigger cars and to be able to use the money to help poor people.
Yeah. A wrong assumption, right?
It's wrong.
Completely
wrong.
Do you know every mistake is opportunity for improvement?
So you made a mistake.
The good thing is that it's not bringing the necessary impact that we assumed, okay? So the good thing is that the government has listened.
In fact, the fail rate was about 85%. Okay. That's my understanding.
But the good point is that this is a listening government. I was trying to raise money to deal with the many issues that we have to deal with. My people have spoken. What we do as leaders, we are about the people's business. Government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. They've spoken. Businesses are talking. This government said, listen, let's look at it again. And it's not wrong to say that.
So which is it? Is it that people are speaking so you've stopped it? Or is it that it failed?
It is because what we were expecting,
so it failed.
As a government.
It failed.
So it failed.
Right? The impact, the fiscal impact, what we expected in terms of revenue was not bringing. And at the same time, it was not good people did not like it. People
Well, they didn't like it from day one.
They didn't like it.
No, but the question is, so
You refuse
because
to take-
because of
it's
that,
because it
it is
failed.
okay to change. Kojo. You
Fair
have to
enough.
be progressive.
Fair enough.
And be honest.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
And I want to thank you both for your time. This has been fascinating, as always. Our guest in the studio, Daniel Oshema-Boaji, MP for Bantama, and also spokesperson for government on finance. Also, Mr. Mutawakilu Adam, who, of course, is a spokesperson on energy and an MP for Damongo. Thank you both for your time.
I salute my people from Damongo constituency.
See, it's all brotherly love here in the studio. There's so much more to come, though. Stay with us.